ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this guy needs any introduction whatsoever. You may have seen him on television, seen him in Las Vegas, read about him. It's the one and only David Copperfield. David, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I owe you big time, buddy.
Very good. How are you? All washing your hands?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you know, you saw our video, how we're teaching the kids about doing that. So,
really good job. I want to hire the puppeteer.
All right. We'll negotiate after this call. So real quick, I got some questions for you. Let me start with this first one. You know, David, it's one thing.
Where you go? See where we're at. That is Orson Welles' Fez. That's Fez on a Alfred Hitchcock bust, but that's Orson Welles' Fez that Jim Steinmeier gave me. That is a poster, a very rare poster from George Méliès theater about a very famous, the one-of-a-kind poster, which is really amazing. It's one of the few things, two of the few things that aren't in the museum, but they're in my house. So
cool.
All
right, so how in the world you got involved in magic years ago? It's one thing to be a magician, it's another to become a collector. Why did you get into the collecting?
No, I really wasn't focused on the history of magic. Sorry. My idols were people that were not magicians at that time, and I really focusing on creating new magic, new things. So, you know, my bandwidth didn't let me really look back at the history of magic. I was really focused on creating new illusions and inventing new things. But Mike Caveney, my friend Mike Caveney, suggested I buy this Mulholland Library. This was about to be dispersed to a whole bunch of other people around the world instead of being the one unit that it was. And I went and I bought it, you know, to kind of rescue it as a whole piece. And at that point, I started reading the stories and understanding the history of all these people. It wasn't about collecting props or items. It was about, you know, what these people went through. And those people went through the same thing that I was going through. People, you know, stealing my material and ripping me off, and legal battles and stuff, and all kinds of things that were really interesting that I could relate to. And suddenly, the magic history became interesting to me. And so I collected more and more, and we kind of quintupled it, I don't know, many times beyond what the Mulholland Library was. We added so many things to it. So it was not about the items or collecting. It was about really conserving those stories and keeping those stories. I think it's fun to collect, but it's even more fun to understand who you're collecting. The great Ken Klosterman took me to his collection, and that kind of changed my whole experience, because he was very story-based and told stories of these individuals and brought it to life. It wasn't having the best poster or having the best item. It was about having things that kind of resonated and made sense to me. And when I saw what Ken Klosterman did, I said, I think I understand what I can do. And that opened up my eyes in a very big way, and I proceeded in that way. So that's what I do.
So it's not just about the magic either. Talk a little bit about the entrance to the museum, because it's really cool what you've done in honor of a very special person in your life.
Yeah, you know, I love secret entrances. Ken Klosterman's got an amazing entrance to his museum with a big elevator that takes you to a special place. You know, I'm a big fan of Disney, so I'll be having the audience or the spectators go on a journey is fun. Originally, it was a bra and girdle store. I thought it was very funny. Probably wouldn't work so well today. When my parents passed away, I changed it to Corby's Men's Shop, my parents' clothing store. And my parents, when I was born, had a clothing store, men's store called Corby's Men's Shop. K.O. for Kotkin, R.B. for Rebecca, and Y for High, my father's name. And Corby's was kind of created, and that's where I went when I was a kid. So I recreated that place so my kids could see where I came from. It provides a nice kind of man from uncle entrance to this experience.
So right now, how many items do you think you have in
I have no idea.
the museum?
I really know. We counted a long time ago, 20 years ago. There was 80,000 things 20 years ago, so I'm sure it's much more. It's an amazing, if you count every little letter and artifact and earring and piece of jewelry, or, you know, a top hat or big, large illusion, it's a very hard thing to count. We're slowly but surely digitizing everything, putting everything on computers and photographing every poster. And so, you know, it's pretty immense.
So one thing that'll be kind of special for those of us here in Texas, and I was really honored to get to be with you when you did this in 2017 for Walter Zaney Blaney. Won't you talk about how you got his collection? And that was a pretty special night because these folks know who he is. He's just down in Houston from us, and
Yeah.
you know.
Well, Walter's one of the special people in magic in the world, special people in my life. He continues. I don't know how he does it. It gives me a lot of hope because he's, hanging in there for us, doing so well, and still sending emails every day and sharing his things. All his friends really are there to kind of reintroduce him to young magicians. And there's so many videos of him that are and great, amazing stories that he has. He just showed little puppets that he made, little marionettes that he made when he was, I think, 8 years old, and they were really good, so amazing. I was the first person to do his levitation, which is a great invention of magic, one of the great magic inventions, levitation with his hoop. He calls it a hup, that he passed over the girl. I begged him for 20 years to put my own spin on it so I could do it. And I eventually got him to say yes on my China special. And I got to do his levitation on my China special, singing to Frank Sinatra and doing it, my own way. From there on in, I said, I would really love to honor you in the museum. And again, many years, decades passed by. And finally said, I'm ready. I'd like to, he had a model that he made when he was a kid, not as a kid, as an adult, trying to see how that illusion would work. In fact, he did it. I think he demonstrated at a magic convention how he created this amazing illusion. So I have that and his props and a big mannequin which towers over me like he towers over me. Every shot of me next to him doesn't give you the full scope of it because I'm always standing on my toes. In every photograph, I'm doing that. So I'm close to his height, but it's an amazing display honoring a guy that I really love.
Cool. So one of your newest purchases has been the Houdini bookshelves. Of course, people may or may not know this, but you have half of Houdini's library already. Isn't that correct? Half of it? The Smithsonian has the Library of Congress has the other half.
That's correct. Houdini gave half of his books to the Library of Congress. The other half gave to John Mulholland, who, as you know, was a great collector, historian. He wrote magazines, The Sphinx. He was a great historian, but also was a wonderful performer and inventor of magic things. And Mulholland's library is what I first purchased, and that library came with half of Houdini's books. I didn't have the cases that they came from. And decades passed, and the house was sold, and one of the bookcases was there in the house. And I negotiated to, in fact, Steve Cohen helped me find it. The great Steve Cohen, go see his show in New York. It's fantastic. With the teapot and so forth, fantastic job he does. He was able to alert me to the fact that this might be available. We got it out of there. We were able to purchase it. The other half was missing, another one half missing. To half of Houdini's library, I had an interesting enough, I was able to get half of the bookcases. We took it to a craftsman. They tore it apart, put it back together, re-glued all the pieces because 100 years takes an effect on cases. And we were able to duplicate the other bookcase next to it. So we have a picture of Houdini, famous picture of Houdini leaning against the bookcases. I'm sure you can share that with all your friends there. The other half of the bookcases, we duplicated. Every single latch and every single piece of molding had to be redone and recast. And they did a fantastic job. And it's a great thing that matches exactly how Houdini has it. And the coolest thing was finally Houdini's books go back into where they came from. And that's pretty awesome.
That is cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your most prized possession at the museum. Now, personally, I know it's got to be the proclamation where you were named an honorary 50,000th citizen of the city of Wiley. That's in your...
That's right. Forget Emmy Awards. Emmy Awards
is special.
They all pale in comparison. FISM, forget about it. Knighthood, forget about it. It's Wiley Tech. Because what do we say? I love Wiley.
Wiley, that's right, Bubba.
Well trained.
That's right. So if you could meet your younger self, what advice would you give to you?
You know, I would have paid attention to certain costume and haircut choices. I think it would have, you know, changed those things. I've made fun of that a lot, but it's true. And, you know, you pay attention to what you have to, you know, think is most important. I would have changed those things. Most of the things I would have kept the same. I learned a lot, made lots of mistakes. Thank God I learned from those mistakes. And, you know, I think the advice would be the same advice that I got, which was really keep fighting for it. And just to, you know, I have 3 P's: passion, preparation, and persistence. Passion, I was definitely passionate about magic. Preparation, I studied everything I possibly could for every single category, not just in magic, but in lighting and in theater and everything I could possibly do. And then I had to be persistence, the 3rd P, because you're always, to this day, you're always shot down, and you know, you get a lot of no's, a lot of resistance, and things don't work properly. So you need passion, preparation, and persistence, and that's what I would have told my younger self.
Cool. We got a question that's come in. It is, what are some of the major obstacles that you had to overcome to achieve your level of success?
You know, it's really that persistence thing. I really have to, you know, you get knocked down, and that's good. It's good to be knocked down. You're going to get knocked down no matter what. Still to this day, I get knocked down. People will say, no, you can't do this. It's not allowed, or you can't, you know, this is an impossible way of using technology, and you persist and you keep fighting for it. And you know, I'm very, very focused on what I do. I find the joy whenever I find the reason for doing it. I have a reason for doing it. It's not just to learn a new effect. It'll be a reason that I have to do it. Something it's worth doing, and for that reason, I'll really fight for it. So it comes with the territory. All the, you know, my father used to say, every knock is a boost. I think he means that every single time you get knocked down, you got to get up and be a little bit stronger.
Cool. So another question came in. Have you ever thought about going on tour again? And follow up with that question is all those specials that you did for CBS for years, have you ever thought about putting those out on DVD or some kind of streaming service?
You never know. We're working on some things now, stand by. But it's definitely a good idea, and something I like to find a way to bring to life in a unique way. And when I figure that out, we're getting close, I'll do it. As far as touring goes, you know, I love doing shows here. You know, never say never, but it's a great place to have a home and be with my family, my kids. And, you know, I did 10 world tours, pretty amazing. And so you never know.
Let me ask you, when you talk to magicians and they talk to you about what inspired you, do they ever kind of have a shell shock look on their face when you say it's not necessarily a magician, but it's the dancers, you know, the old timey classic movies? Does that ever surprise them?
You know, they don't show me surprise. I think they understand. You know, to this day, you know, I watched, there was a documentary about Fiddler on the Roof, and I watched it. We streamed it, called Fiddler, Miracle of Miracles. And one of my idols, Jerome Robbins, who wasn't the nicest guy, it talks about his struggle with creating that show and how they had a song that made fun of things during a very serious part of the show. And here's a guy that was really a genius. Stephen Sondheim says one of the few geniuses he ever met. You know, a really tough guy. Had a lot of not the easiest guy to work with. But this Jerome Robbins guy, hearing that he had this mistake in the show for months and months, and only at the last minute pulled it out, gives me hope that the fact that sometimes I don't see clearly on how to make something work, that sometimes the audience gets to vote. You know, I always say the audience votes at the end of the day. So I guess because I do so many shows, I guess that really helps me make the magic maybe better than it would have been if I didn't listen to the audience as well.
So that comes to the next question is, what drives you to do, I mean, you're the busiest guy in Las Vegas. That's your kind of your mantra that you have out there. You got 2 shows a night, 3 on, is it Saturday or Sunday you do 3 shows?
Saturday, yeah. 15 a week.
What drives you to do that?
You know, I love creating new things. I love hearing the audience judge what I'm doing. So the constant tweaking of things makes it worth doing. You know, what is worth doing? You know, it's, you know, if discovering new ways of doing things, finding new twists on things makes it fun, and the audience is part of that process. So I do so many shows to have an audience that's going to be vibrant and be very, telling me what they like and what they don't like, and that allows me to modify what I'm doing. And I think that's what makes it fun for me.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. And folks, I guess if you're ever in Las Vegas, you got to see this show. I mean, it is incredible, and he adds to it all the time. And one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot is, like, for example, the whole movie industry is because of a magician. And so you're on the cutting edge of some of the stuff with the animatronics and all that you're doing, and the show is continually changing. And it's just every time there's something new that throws me off. It's just great.
Thank you so much. It was always good to see you, and I love my friends in Texas.
All right. Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.